Welcome to Un Cupán Tea. Folks, I have got something to say. Listen to this. I was having a conversation with a lady named Gillian, a very wise theologian who suffers me greatly, I think. Well, here's the thing. I went and put a question to her, and as soon as I put the question to her, her husband went and said, "Oh, I'm going to sit down for this one." But I was explaining to her that I believe that the church has moved into a position that we have been speaking about the love of God to the detriment of two other aspects of God, and that is that God is a holy God. God is a just God. And the problem is that nowadays we have a false understanding of the love of God. And so I was saying that people end up that as a result, they look at God as being someone who will just turn a blind eye to everything. And I was sharing a scenario with me. And I said, we need to speak about the holiness of God. We need to speak about the justice of God. We need to bring these things into focus. And she just looks at me and she goes, "Oh, well then I would say that people don't understand the love of God." I was like, oh, here we go back on the merry-go-round. But as much as it pains me, folks, it pains me, she is right. I was driving along and I was just thinking about God. God being Jehovah Adonai. God the Lord. Adonai Jehovah, the Lord God. And that He is the supreme being. That He is love supreme. He is love without fault. He is perfect love. And as I was meditating, as I was driving, on the perfect love of God, it just hit me. It just blew me away. Because here's the thing. When I look at Calvary, when I look at Christ, when I look at what He suffered, when I look at what He went through on my behalf, when I look at how much God the Father loves me, it just revealed to me this one thing. If there is any sort of a lifestyle, any sort of an addiction, any sort of a sin habit, any sort of an excuse that I may put forward, any sort of a mindset, any sort of career that is in the way of God's plan for my life, if there's any attitude, any philosophy, any possession that I have, and it comes in the way of that perfect love, then, as Gillian has said, I don't understand the love of God. So what I'm saying to you is this: if you have any sort of a lifestyle, any sort of an addiction, any sort of a sin habit, any sort of excuse that you put forward, any sort of a mindset, any sort of career that is not going and benefiting your relationship with God, any sort of an attitude, any sort of a philosophy, any sort of possession that you own, and you hold it more dearly and the precious love of Jesus, then here's the thing. You do not know the love of God. And as I was thinking about that, it brought me into Matthew's Gospel, a very, very familiar little parable that Jesus goes and tells. And that is, the kingdom of heaven is like hidden treasure in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in joy went and sold all that he had. Listen to those words: sold all that he had and bought that field, just to get that treasure. Just to get that treasure. And then Jesus goes and tells another parable. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls, and when he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. Here's the point. Nothing was going to stand in the way of him getting that pearl. Nothing was going to stand in the way of that man getting that treasure in the field. Nothing. Now here's a question. Let me ask you, what is the something that is stopping you from understanding and experiencing the love of God, just like Gillian went and said? Nigel, the issue is that person doesn't know the love of God. Folks, don't use the love of God to be an excuse to go and justify your position of where you're at. But let the love of God transform you. I have to tell you, okay, I am just so stoked on this. This is so exciting. Because here's the point. God's love, if you're someone who knows Him as your Lord and Savior, God's love is in your heart. And you know what Paul goes and says? Because His Spirit is living within us. Paul goes and his prayer is it any wonder his prayer is that God would shed abroad the love of Christ in our hearts? Is it any wonder that in Ephesians in chapter 3, his prayer for the church in Ephesus was this: for this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom the whole family in heaven and earth derives its name, and I pray out of His glorious riches He may strengthen you with power through His Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power to grasp how wide, long, high, and deep is the love of Christ, and to know that love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Oh, I know, here I am, we're having our cupán tea, and I'm just like in your face with this. But my point is this is so exciting. Please do not miss it. What is in your life right now? And you put more store on it than you do the love of Christ. What is in your life right now that you put more store on it than the love of Christ? But here's the point. If you put anything or hold on to anything more dearly, then you do not know the love of Christ. Be like that man who found the treasure in the field. Be like that merchant who found that pearl of great price. Let everything that is in the way, everything that hinders, just tear it off. Get rid of it all, so that you know Christ and His love shed abroad in your heart. Ooh, I am telling you, it is so exciting. Gillian, I concede this round to you. You're right. We don't know the love of God like we ought to.